bringing it to attention that it's in state law, so it's not something that we're requiring here. It's already in state law. So at this time, there's no point in further discussing that piece because it's required by law is what we're getting advice as, basically. Okay, thank you.
Dr. Burkhart, it appears the live feed may have gone down. Okay.
It is back up. I've been told by that. Dr. Cromer, also known as production
Thank you,
executive.
Doctor.
Okay, so that being said, and being that it's already state law, there's no reason for further discussion on this item. Okay, at this point, number 17, we give visitors. Anyone in the audience who wishes to?
If I may, we're still in 16, other matters.
Other business?
Yes, if I may.
Okay.
So in examining the Dean of Students and going to our schools to look at the discipline matters and what level of student discipline we have, I ran into discussion with administrators who felt that board members were limited under FERPA as to what they can and can't see in regard to student records and discipline. So in looking at that, for those that don't know, FERPA's Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, it restricts what records from students can and can't be viewed. So in looking at that and seeing what I, as a board member, I am and am not allowed to view, I looked at it very closely, and there are automatic exemptions to allow disclosure of those records. One specifically is school board members who have been determined in legal court that they are school officials in regards to operating with legitimate educational interest. There are 3 cases I'd like to cite: Berglund versus LeBlanc in 1986, JD versus Paulet School District in 2005, and McBurney and Young from 2012. All of them clearly identified that school board members are considered school officials and have a right to view student records, with the caveat there are 2 hurdles to reach legally. One is the legitimate educational interest and whether they're acting in their official capacity. So those are the 2 hurdles I would suggest. So further down the road, in looking at the Dean of Students and a discipline and IEP and ES in general, I did try and reach out to other administrators. One suggested 907 limits my ability to even visit a classroom. In the future, I think we're going to be examining that. It's 907, I think, is our policy. But today, I'd just like to ask that our solicitor more clearly define her interpretation of FERPA for the board in the future, as far as what we can and can't access as board members.
For the future.
Yes.
Matt, can I just ask, because
Yeah,
I
sure.
wasn't with you when you were at the building, when you are referencing information that you were hoping to get, and I don't know if you were able to get it or not, so you can fill me in on that. What was the data that what data would you need that couldn't be given to you without violating a student's private information? So I'm saying this wrong. So if you wanted to come in and know how many kids were suspended for punching another child in the face, please don't do that, students in the classroom. That number could be given to you easily. But if you were to say, I want to know if Mrs. Weaver's children punched a kid in the face, there's no educational need for that. Like my child, and he's never done this, he could be that number, but what is the benefit to you of knowing? Are you wanting children's individual information? That's, I think, what I'm confused what
So
you're asking.
I get what you're asking. So there were 2 instances that I would refer to. One would be during the visit to understand how we handle our levels of discipline. When one of the administrators was dealing with a parent on the phone related to a discipline issue that had just occurred, I was asked to step out, and I'm trying to ascertain what we go through with discipline to see what is involved, to see whether we need a dean of students. That's one of the examples I was citing as to, I want to know what's involved with this. So I have a legitimate educational interest to see how involved is this. Now, it's not just that, but there were other points where I had to step away. And I'm not advocating I necessarily should or shouldn't in that instance. What I want is clearly identify what FERPA applies to and what it doesn't. And then the second part would be in relation to our IEPs and our ES. And we're taking students back from the LIU, and I want to examine under IED I'm coming to understand there are certain instances where we can't remove a disruptive child under IDEA without certain scenarios. I want to understand that, and to understand the level of disruptions is occurring, I would want to be in the classroom to see what extent the classroom is being disrupted in an instance like that. That was the other reason I reached out to see the extent to what that is occurring. I think there are two valid reasons as a board member to ascertain what's occurring and what isn't in our district. Now, granted, we can rely on the administration to do that, but I'm one of those, I like to see it with my own eyes, and if FERPA doesn't clearly prohibit it, then we need to know that or not. And that's really what I'm getting at. I want to know definitively what FERPA says we can and cannot do.
So Mr. Gelazella and I had a conversation about this, and I've thought long and hard about the educational interest. And Dr. Dalton, correct me if I'm wrong, and I've been wrong before and I'll be wrong again. When Mr. Gelazella is making a decision as part of the legitimate educational interest, that decision is incumbent or inclusive of the board, not individually. Now, I understand his need to gather individual information. But to your point, Mrs. Weaver, I think the question I have for you to answer, Dr. Dalton, is at what point does going into a classroom to observe a specific student, whether it's planned or not, does it become where we have to remove someone because it's the need to know? What is that need to know for an outside
Mhm.
certified, obviously, when you're a certified school official, there are certain things that I have no need to know that I don't know. And so my question is, what is that need to know? What is that threshold? And under FERPA or HIPAA, for that matter, because there could be some, HIPAA is included under FERPA, there could be some health issues, especially with some of the more sensitive and fragile, vulnerable students, Dr. Hum, that we have in our buildings, that I think we have to be mindful of and make sure we're protecting. So certainly, we want to give the board all the information they need when they have to make a decision, but at the same time, we can't sacrifice the privacy of the child. So that's the delicate act that we have to follow, and we'll look to you for that guidance, because I do think,
Sure.
it's important that we find that balance.
And I'm certainly not trying to advocate we should have carte blanche. I mean, there should be legitimate reasons to be there. I'm not trying to say that, but we do have policy 907, which was suggested to me as a board member, we're considered visitors. And I don't accept that. And that's something we can address later as far as when we look at our policy. I think we're at a higher standard than visitors. I think we have to develop opinions that address our policies, and we have to be able to do that effectively. And that's the discussion for later part. Right now, I'd just like the clarification on what FERPA does and doesn't require.
I'd like to just make one statement with regards to the fact that you were asked to leave the office when some things were being done. Depending on what that phone call was to a parent, there could have been information divulged to you at that point, which if whatever that issue is would have come to the board for a hearing, you would have had prior knowledge to,
Mhm.
and that's not acceptable. When we come
Right.
to a hearing,
Agreed.
we are, okay. Okay.
Yeah,
we
I
just-
I
we
didn't I
just-
didn't advocate I should stay. It was referred to as a FERPA restriction, and I want to identify what is FERPA and what isn't. I agreed wholeheartedly because the disciplinary, right? Let's not predispose our board members who are going to sit on a discipline hearing to something that's occurring disciplinary. I just want to know as it relates, what is FERPA and what isn't.
Okay, all right, all right. Okay. Now, should we move on?
Appreciate it.
We're good. Move on to visitors. Anybody in the audience wish to address the board on any subject? Okay, seeing, hearing nothing. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Matt, and second from,
If you can delay that a moment, I have a few matters for information for the public as well as fellow board members.
okay, just, okay. Go ahead, Jay.
Thank you. We are very, very privileged in this district to have community partners that continually and constantly step up on a regular basis to fill a need that we can't necessarily put on the taxpayer or something that we just don't have the funds for at that particular moment. Many people that go to the football games, but there are many people that don't. And in lieu of the people that don't necessarily hear this or have not had the opportunity to hear this, I wanted to bring to everyone's attention the support that this district received from many community members in reference to our scoreboard, our new scoreboard. And I'd like to read them down the same as our announcer read them down because I think they deserve the recognition for all of the time and effort that they have put on behalf of every student that goes through the athletic program or the music program because they're on that field as well when it may be used during championships. And they consist of Eastern Caisson for boring the holes, Keith Smith Concrete for labor to set up rebar and pour concrete, KLK Welding, half of the steel and welding value, Conawago Enterprises for an entire load of concrete, and if you've had a load of concrete delivered, you know how expensive that can be. Henry Hartman, Electrical Conduit and Ditching, Paul Berkentine, Southwest Athletic Boosters, J. Ross Enterprises, and the Southwest Class of 2023. And I will mention their specific donation because I think it speaks volumes of their efforts, and it was $1,500. All of these individuals, excuse me, with the last being Wirtz Farm and Power. Those of us that come to all the Building and Grounds meeting have had the privilege of meeting the owner of Wirtz Farm. And I believe that Mr. Kevin Dickmeyer deserves special recognition because he coordinated all of this. He got all of this support for this to go up. And time again, when the community steps up in amounts of 5,000, 2,000, 5,000, 5,000, 5,000, for a total of $27,790 on behalf of our students, we cannot thank them enough. In addition, Dr. Burkhart mentioned that on Friday night, there are two inductees for the Ring of Honor, I call it the Ring of Honor, the Hall of Excellence, will be recognized at the football game. The actual ceremony will be taking place on Sunday. I would highly recommend, if anybody has not been there, to see the appreciation that these alumni have for the recognition of how they have succeeded in society. This is what we strive for each and every day on this board, is to provide the tools to have these people succeed. And these are the cream of the crop. They are chosen by fellow alumni, by board members, by employees. They are people that are recognized for the achievements that they have obtained in society after their time at Southwest. And I can tell you, it can be very teary-eyed to see that. So that is Sunday at the Eichelberger. You can see Mr. Bull. He has tickets available if anybody's interested. That's 3 to 5 p.m. In addition, it is free. Okay, thank you. But you still need a ticket, do you not? Okay, so then just show up. And it would be wonderful, to see more support for these individuals on Sunday. It should be a packed house when we recognize our alumni. And finally, one of the largest moneymakers that we have for the Southwestern Education Foundation. For those of you that are not familiar with this organization does, stop and talk to either Mrs. Yingst or myself, and we'll sing his praises from now until the end of. We provide grants through fundraisers for teachers to be able to come before our board and say, the district can't afford this. Can you help me with this? And we award grants on a yearly basis to teachers to be able to provide additional opportunities for them to again benefit our students. This event that we have, our largest event, is taking place on October 7th at the Hanover Country Club. I would highly recommend that even if you can't make it, you show your support by purchasing a ticket. They can also be by either Mrs. Jinks or myself or Mr. Bull. It's a wonderful event, and if you ever want to see the continuity of the past to the present in terms of how special this place is and the people that have set the tone for us to follow and live up to, you want to come to this event, because this event is nothing more than a wonderful evening of complete and utter support for Southwest. So if you are so inclined, I would highly recommend all board members try as much as they can to participate. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. Now, anything else? We had a motion by Mr. Galazella for adjournment. Is there a second?
Second.
Tom? Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Thank you all for your attendance and your participation. Have a good evening.